With all the attention in 2013 on high-end flagship smartphones such as the HTC One, the Samsung Galaxy S4, and Apple's iPhone 5s costing around $500 to $600 each, can a phone that costs around $200 deliver exceptional value and performance? A company called Verykool in San Diego, California hopes that the answer would be yes with its new s470 smartphone, which delivers exceptional performance thanks to a quad-core processor, a 720p HD display, and dual SIM cards. I'm Chang Wen for Gotta Be Mobile. Join me in this video review as we find out more about the s470 from Verykool and see how it stacks up against the best-in-class smartphones of today. Right off the bat, you can see that the design of the Verykool S470 reminds us a lot of Google's Nexus 4 smartphone with its straight side edges and curved top and bottom pieces. The phone itself is just a standard phone. It has a very unassuming and conservative design, being cloaked in all black. This phone is called the Black Pearl, and it has just basically a black body. On the back you can see that it's coated in sort of a soft touch, but it's not really too soft, so it feels more solid plastic, but it's a soft touch material that's matte and not glossy like some of the phones of today. So that does reduce some of the fingerprints that you see when you're looking at a piano black glossy surface. The Verykool smartphone has a 4.7-inch display, which is similar in size to the HTC One. However, the HTC One does have a 1080p display, whereas the Verykool has a 720p display, which is still an HD resolution. The screen itself is vibrant. It is an IPS display, meaning that you do benefit from wide viewing angles, so it should look good both indoors and outdoors. In reality, with the display, I find that although it does look indoors under ambient lighting conditions, outdoors under direct sunlight, the screen tends to wash out and fade a lot. So you're going to have a more difficult time looking at the display under direct sunlight, unlike with some of the more expensive phones, which has a better screen. The design is very minimal, so you're going to see on the left spine towards the top, you're going to have the volume up and down rocker button. At the very top, you have the 3.5mm headphone jack along with the power button, and then on the right side it's very clean except for on the bottom edge of the right spine you're going to see this little notch here where you can use your finger nails and pull it out, so it does have a removable back battery cover, which we'll go to in just a second. And towards the bottom spine you have a microphone along with a micro USB charge and sync port. The one thing to be concerned about with the charge and sync is that although it doesn't wobble or wiggle when you plug in a cable, the one thing it doesn't do is that it doesn't hold the cable in too well. Most cables, most micro USB charging cables will just fall straight out without any effort, so you don't even have to tug on the cable, it would just drop out. So the one thing to be concerned about when you're using this phone is to make sure that the cable is plugged in securely overnight, else you're going to wake up in the morning with a low or dead battery if the phone doesn't charge because the cable fell out overnight. And towards the back here, you do have an 8-megapixel camera with dual LED flash, so it does take pictures even with low light thanks to the assistance of the flash. The camera can also record video in 1080p resolution, and then towards the bottom here you have the Verykool logo along with perforated speaker grills here for the loudspeaker on the back of the phone. Let's go ahead and remove the back battery cover, where you're going to have access to at the top here. You do have to remove the battery to plug in a micro SD card slot, but as the phone only comes with just a few gigs of storage, having the micro SD card slot will be a boon to many users who want to store documents or files locally. So having that storage card will increase your storage space quite dramatically compared to just a few gigs that are on the phone itself. And then you have a battery here. I'm going to go ahead and remove the battery for just a second. It's a sizable 2000 milliamp hour battery, as you can see. But the unique thing about this phone that many other phones in the US don't offer is that it does have dual SIM cards here. So I only have a mini and micro SIM from AT&T and T-Mobile, so I've used an adapter, which makes it a little bit more difficult to remove the card itself. So I'm not going to try and attempt to do it on video right now, but you can plug in either two AT&T cards, two T-Mobile cards, a straight talk card, a T-Mobile and an AT&T combination, or you can just use one SIM card, but it does give you the flexibility of having two SIMs. The benefit to this is that if you're a frequent business travel to an international country, you can leave both your home SIM and the international SIM in at the same time, and this way you don't have to swap SIM cards too often. And then if you don't even travel internationally, if you're a user who likes to have their phone, who likes to maintain two separate phones, one for personal and one for business, this will allow you to do that in just one hardware. So you can have two numbers and choose which number to pick up on, while at the same time just carrying one phone rather than having to be bogged down with two separate devices. So it does reduce the bulk in your pocket. So that's one of the unique features that the Verykool phone offers, is the dual SIM card that you won't find in a lot of the phones found in the US. Now that the phone is boot up, at the top you're going to see two separate indicators here, and there are two different colors to quickly identify you which network you're on. So for instance, I've configured AT&T to use the blue color, while the pink or salmon color is used for T-Mobile. And this will not only show up in the network indicator here to show how much signal strength your phone has on each individual network, but it's also used to identify caller ID. So when you have an incoming call, it will show up in a border with either one of these two colors here at the top. So it's going to quickly identify the person is calling either your work line or your personal line, so you can quickly identify if you want to pick up that number. So after hours, you might not want to pick up a call on AT&T's network if AT&T is your work SIM. And then the other thing to note about the dual SIM card is that it will only work either network, or it will only work with networks that support HSPA Plus in the US. So it's a 3G GSM SIM protocol. However, it doesn't support AT&T's or T-Mobile's faster LTE networks. Additionally, while you can receive both calls on either number at the same time, so you don't have to actively switch between the SIM card, it will automatically do that for you. If you're making a call, you can specify in the network setting if you want it to be either with T-Mobile or with AT&T, or when a call comes in, it will automatically ring if you have both SIMs activated inside the phone. However, with data, you do have to specify if you want your data connection to be made on one of the SIMs, so it won't automatically switch over. So this will help you maintain your data as well if you want to just have data be on your work line, so that your personal line will only be for voice calls, for instance. The Verykool S40 runs a basic version of Android 4.2.1 Jelly Bean, and again here we're going to have a lot more comparisons with the Google Nexus line because it's a pretty vanilla or standard version of Jelly Bean, so it works without much customizations, unlike some of the other flagships of the year where we're overwhelmed with some of the add-ons that are preloaded on the phone itself. Verykool does offer a number of different apps, including a file manager, a quick start guide, as you can see here. I'm going to try and find the file manager, which is right here. It will allow you to manage your files just right out of the box without having to download a third-party file manager program. And then there's also an out-of-box setup experience, which Verykool calls an OOBE, or out-of-box experience. And if you tap here, it's just like a quick start guide. So it will allow you to set up some of the most helpful or used settings on the phone itself. And it's also going to allow you to set up your network and your call, so you can manage your SIM that way. So here I have my voice calls by default to use the T-Mobile network, video calls using AT&T, and any text message I sent, it will ask which network I would use, and then for data I've defaulted that to AT&T, but you can also switch and switch between T-Mobile or AT&T for any of those features. And then you can also set up Wi-Fi, your Google account, and any other options that pop up on the out-of-box experience. So by default, it's a pretty fluid experience with a quad-core processor. There are some nitpicks that I want to point out with the hardware. It's not the same Snapdragon or NVIDIA Tegra processors that you're going to find on some of the more high-end feature-rich phones that cost $500 or $600 without a contract. Again, this phone only costs $230 without a contract, so you don't have to sign a 2-year agreement. You can just take the phone, take it to your favorite wireless carrier, and ask them for a SIM card, and then you can switch carriers at any time because you're not getting it subsidized. It does use a more budget-conscious quad-core 1.2 gigahertz processor. So you're going to find that the experience is rather fluid. It does have a Power VR graphics to boost in graphics performance. In general, even moderate to heavy users will find a lot to love about the performance of this phone. But for $100 more, you're going to get a Nexus 5, which does support both LTE and also a faster processor, a Snapdragon 800, along with a 1080p Full HD resolution. So the $100 is going to net you a lot more upgrades. But if you do need a dual SIM solution, this is probably one of the most affordable dual SIM models that are feature-rich that's available in the US today, because it's still a rarity to have a dual SIM phone. More heavy power users will notice that there will be some lag if you're doing a lot of intensive tasks at the same time, which includes downloading and installing applications from the Google Play Store while trying to launch another application. And when you're doing that, you're going to notice some lag or slowdowns in the system. The device does have 1 gig of RAM rather than the 2 or 3 gigs on some of the higher end models, so multitasking and lagging will probably be a little bit or somewhat noticeable if you're trying to run a lot of things at the same time. In terms of camera performance, I'm going to go ahead and launch the camera right now. It does use a pretty standard user interface here. So you have a carousel here on the left hand side, which allows you to switch from different scene modes. Here you have sports, you have night, a panorama, so just various different options. And then there's a photo shutter button here along with the video capture. There's a settings button here on the lower right hand side, which gives you more different settings options for the camera itself and for the microphone. The 8 megapixel camera does record 1080p video, and in terms of performance, it does perform rather well in good lighting situations, although the performance can be somewhat inconsistent. So sometimes you're going to get really great detailed shots, while at the same time some other shots might not have the same resolution or same details that you're going to find on some of the more high-end phones which have better camera sensors. So although this camera does a lot and it can still deliver quite a bit of power, it's not going to be the same performance as what you would expect from a $500 or $600 phone. It does have a 2 megapixel camera here at the front, so you can take self-portraits or even perform video chats on Google Hangouts or even on Skype. So for a $230 phone off contract that supports dual SIM cards, the Verykool S470 does deliver quite a bit of punch for its price tag. Join me on www.gottomemobile.com for the full review of the Verykool S470 smartphone. I'm Chang Wen for Gotta Be Mobile. Thanks for watching this video review.